Welcome back to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon, brought to you by the Talking Metal Digital Network. I am your host, Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week from Venom is Kronos, and of course from Winery Dogs and his solo career, Richie Kotzen. And my co-host is Mark Strigl of Talking Metal. Good day, sir.
Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Good, good. Alive and well, which is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but before we get into our bands, melodicrock.com and Andrew McNeese always posts our podcast and the Talking Metal, and they do a lot of good stuff. And
Yeah, great site.
great site. And Andrew has a little record company on the side that helps pay for the site, and he's got 3 new releases that I just wanted to mention for folks to go check out. Terra Nova, the album is called Reinvent Yourself. Empires of Eden, and the album's called Architects of Hope. And finally, the band Tonk with Ruby Voodoo. So if you head over to melodicrock.com or Melodic Rock Records, you can check those out and just, do us a favor, because Andrew is such a big supporter of what we do. So it's time to give back, right?
Absolutely, definitely.
Now, speaking of giving back, let's talk Richie Kotzen first. He's got a new album called Cannibals, and a new live DVD coming down the road, and of course, Winery Dogs Part 2, even though that's not the album name, but you're a big Winery Dogs supporter, right?
Oh, yeah, I love Winery Dogs. I have seen them only once live, but they just blew my mind. They are so good, and I was right up front and just had Billy Sheehan right in my face, just rocking. I mean, just the musicianship is just crazy. But what I really love about the band, honestly, is the songwriting and Richie's voice. I mean, he just has such a great voice. The great playing and everything is secondary to me. That's just the frosting on the cake, if you will. It's truly a band that just has some really great rock songs.
Yeah, they do. But Richie's had now 20 solo albums, and
Yes.
yet there hasn't been that kind of heat or attention given to them. I mean, people love him, and let's not belittle him here. But why do you think the Winery Dogs have connected more than anything else?
I don't know, because that is a good question, because Richie throughout his career has had a lot of great songs. However, I think it could just be the combination of these 3 guys. You have the crazy bass fans that love Billy
Mhm.
Sheehan. You have Mike Portnoy's big fan base, which includes prog rockers and
Mhm.
just straight ahead metalheads, and then you bring in Richie's fan base. I mean, maybe it's the combination of these 3 guys that has caused more of a spotlight to be focused on them, and just has caused the ears to grow, and become more when they put stuff out as Winery Dogs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the second album. I wonder, and I talk about it with Richie. You know, is there like a Winery Dog sound that they have to replicate from album to album, or do they go sort of into new grounds? But it'll be interesting, and hopefully it'll be out later this year. So something to look forward to.
Yeah, can't wait.
Shall we just get into Richie and listen to what he has to say?
Yeah, let's hear this.
Here's Richie Kotzen talking about Cannibals, his new album, and of course, the Winery Dog. This is your 20th album, and you've actually gone back in the vaults on this one. You've taken music and songs that you've had sitting around for a few years, and you've decided to put them together as a collection. Tell me about how you sifted through everything and how you came up with this collection.
Well, it started when I actually wrote the song Cannibals, which is the most current, the newest thing that I've
Right.
written. And so once I finished that song, shortly after that, I started working on this song called The Enemy, which was started off as a brand new song. And I had written the entire piece, and I started recording it. And somewhere in that recording, I realized that I really wasn't happy with what was happening
Right.
in the verse.
Right.
And I loved the chorus, and I had the whole concept lyrically, but musically, it wasn't working. And so I started going back to some of my older ideas, and I found a song on the hard drive that was pretty much finished.
Right.
And it had a really cool intro and a really cool verse, but the chorus was terrible. But it just so happened to be the same tempo and the same kind of feel as what the Enemy was. And so I thought instantly, wow, I should try to merge these two and see if I can get one good song out of these two not so good songs.
Right.
And somehow it worked. And in the process, I actually, not only did I merge the writing of it, but the physical recording I merged. So what you have is a drum take and guitar pass from maybe, I don't know, something that was recorded 8 years ago, combined with something that was recorded now. And somehow I found a way to kind of glue it all together and make it work. And I ended up with a song that's one of my favorite pieces on the record. So that kind of opened the door to me going back and kind of wondering, well, what else do I have lurking around that could be, saved, so to speak.
In the vault.
So I started finding things, and I found some actually completed recordings that I'd forgotten about. One of them is a song, Come On Free, and the other song, Time for the Payment. Those two songs were actually finished many years ago, and Time for the Payment ended up on the Cannibals record completely unchanged. It's
right.
The original mix that I had done way back in probably 2008. And Come On Free was even older. That song I had written probably 10 years ago, recorded it. So I found that one, and I updated the mix. I remixed it, and that ended up on the record. And then everything else is pretty much has been written and worked on with more current,
right.
Even though some of the ideas may have been lurking for quite some time. But it's an interesting record, and it's weird. People always ask, where does the inspiration for songs come from? But it's a strange thing. They come from everywhere, and sometimes a song writes itself in 10 minutes, and other times it takes 10 years to finish a song.
Yeah, now you also have I'm All In with Doug Pinnick from King's X. King's X is one of those, underground bands, I guess, for many, but just been around doing it for so many years. What attracted you to Doug? Just the fact that he's this uber talent?
Well, obviously he's an amazing singer and a great writer, but,
Agreed.
We were at a barbecue together at a friend's house, and Doug started talking to me about the Winery Dogs and how much he liked what we did on that record. And
right.
He had suggested that he and I do something together. And that night I went home and I was working on the Cannibals record, and I happened to have been working on that song, We're All In. And I was realizing, well, there's a lot of lyrics here to be sung. And I thought, man, this would be a perfect vehicle for Doug and I, to kind of trade off of. And so I altered the lyrics to fit, the idea of two people singing back and forth. And I had him come in, and we liked the track, so we ended up trading vocals on it. And it's one of the highlights on the record for me, definitely. And I love Doug. I think he's a fantastic musician, so it was cool to finally do something with him.
Do you think it'll stop at the one song, or do you think a project will come out of this?
You never know. We actually were hanging out at the NAMM show, and we were throwing ideas around. Right now, for me, obviously, I'm gearing up for another Winery Dog run, so my energy and focus is on that. But you never know. I think it would be really cool to actually do something from ground zero, with Doug, where we write together and that whole thing. So I could definitely see that happening. I don't think it's going to happen right now, obviously, because I'm getting ready to start with the Winery Dogs. But definitely something I would like to do.
Yeah, I do want to talk to you a little bit about the Winery Dogs as well, but something even more striking comes from the Cannibals album, and that's the fact that you're working with your daughter, August, on a song called You. Um, tell me about that experience. Were you nervous going into that? Going, oh boy, I'm getting my daughter into the music business. Is it exciting? Just tell me about.
Well, you know, she's kind of doing her own thing, and the thing with music and her, you know, her mother is a singer.
Mm-hmm.
She August has always been an artistic child, and I remember many years ago, she may have been 11 or 12, and she took interest in the piano, and even before that, actually, she was singing and writing little songs, and so I kind of let her develop on her own, and the way the song "You" happened was maybe she was 14, she's about to turn 18, so
Right.
she must have been 14 or maybe even younger. She was playing that piano piece over and over, and I asked her, I said, "What is that you keep playing?" And she said, "I don't know. It's something I made up." I said, "It's really cool." I said, "We should record that so you don't forget it." So I pulled out two really nice microphones and I mic'd up the piano, and I said, "Just play it, you know, as long as you want, you know, however you want, and I'm just going to record it so you don't forget it." So she played it for about 7 minutes, you know, the three sections over and over. And it just kind of sat on my hard drive. And I had said to her, "Man, you should really write something to that. It's very interesting." And when I was going through the archives, I found that years later. And I thought, man, I really like this. It's very haunting and interesting. So I took it upon myself to write lyrics to it. And for me, it's one of the coolest things on the record.
Right.
So it just kind of happened organically, you know, and now she's working on her own record. She's working with a producer, and I purposely stay out of it. I don't want to be an influence on her creatively or artistically. You know, she's a different generation, and the things that I think are cool, you know, she might not think are cool, and so I want her to kind of make her own way, which it looks like she's taking steps to do. But you know, as the only thing I told her is if you want to do music, if you enjoy it, do it. The minute it becomes a hassle, then you got to look for something else, because the idea is to be happy, you know.
Right, absolutely. Now, when she read over your lyrics to essentially her song, was she happy with them, or did she say, "Oh, Dad, really? Come on, you can do better"?
No, she liked them, and she actually
Okay.
she said, "I want to put this on my record." That was the first thing she said. So that at that point, I knew that I did something right. And then shortly after that, I don't know if you saw it, but we did a music video.
Mm-hmm. I did
for
see it.
Yeah, and so that was cool to do, and she had fun with that. So, but no, yeah, she approved. I got lucky with that one.
Yeah, let me ask you about it just in another way too. You know, these days they talk about the music business is in disarray. There's all the downloading. You can't make any money. The only thing you can do is tour. New artists aren't as lucky as older acts because, you know, when you're AC/DC, it's easy to fill a stadium. But what advice do you offer her? I mean, what can you tell her as a new artist in terms of how are you going to make it?
We don't even have those conversations because,
Okay.
you know, her whole thing is just, you know, being creative and enjoying, you know, making music. And, you know, she's in ballet. She's got so many things, so many outlets creatively. So music is just one of them. She's definitely not like I was when I was 17, where
Right.
I was obsessed with, you know, getting a record deal and all that sort of thing. Because the business has changed so much now. I mean, the notion of getting a record deal, at least for me, for a guy that, you know, a rock guy, you know, I wouldn't know where to begin at this stage of the game. So I really can't give advice because I don't understand how a new act or a young act, how that even works anymore. You know, the whole system that got me into a position where I became known doesn't even exist anymore. So I have no concept of it, you know. I don't even get involved.
Yeah, it's got to be exceptionally strange. Now, listen, this is your 20th album, and you had a small stint with Poison, and as in a group situation, and it didn't work, and you moved on. You tried Mr. Big, it didn't work, and moved on, and then you tried the Winery Dogs, and it worked. It was a massive success. Um, What is it about the Winery Dogs that made it so successful, and why did you want to put yourself in a group situation? You've done 20 solo albums. Why not just keep doing that?
Well, the first part of the question, I feel compelled to correct you because, in my opinion, both the Poison situation worked and the Mr. Big situation worked. And I'll cite the example that our Poison record went gold the first week it was released. And back then, if you remember,
Yes.
all the 80s rock bands that were putting out records were just being squashed.
Right.
And the Poison record in the first week sold almost 700,000 copies. And our video was in the top 5, our video for Stan at MTV for many weeks. It was in heavy rotation.
A song that you still play. Yeah, let me just qualify that. What I meant by not work is not in terms of sales. I meant more in terms of longevity. I mean, here we are in 2015. You're still not.
Sure,
I mean, you're not in. That's what
absolutely.
I meant. And I loved Native Tongue, by the way. I think Stand. All the versions, the acoustic version, which was a B-side single, the what you've done with it live in concert, that song is just great in any way that you've presented it. I mean, honestly, it's a fantastic song.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah, the thing is, I think for me, I mean, I've always been a solo artist. Obviously, it's where I started from,
Right.
and it's probably where I'll end. But the Winery Dogs is an interesting situation because, the other bands decided I was a band member. I was a primary member. I was writing songs with both bands. However, I was coming into a situation that was built that had nothing to do with me.
Right.
They were both bands already known and had more success before I was in the band than they did once I got in the band. So
Correct.
It was a situation where I was a contributor to something that already had been established. Whereas with the Winery Dogs, this is a situation that's built from ground zero. And obviously, I have a history with Billy in working with him. But even taking that into the equation, this is a band that really has no history or track record other than us getting together at my house and writing a bunch of songs and making a record. So I think part of the appeal for me is, in the same as when I was in the other bands, I'm able to be myself and write the songs that I write and sing the way I sing and play the way I play. But the same goes for the other guys. It's not like we have some kind of previous template that we have to fit into. We're actually kind of writing our own page. And so I think there's a level of honesty in that, and I think that's probably what appeals to people and why that first record got such a great response. And I think the second record, now that we've been in our writing sessions, is going to musically even surpass that. I don't know that people are going to embrace it the same way. I hope they do. But I feel like because we've spent this time together, we've grown as a band and we understand each other better. So I think the foundation is set to make an even stronger record.
Right. So, I mean, the question then is what do you do for an encore? I mean, are all three of you writing individually, and then at some point you're going to convene and say, okay, who's got the 10 best songs here, or what are our 10 best songs? Or is this collaborative where you and Billy are sitting down at a Starbucks writing lyrics right now?
No, the way the band works, and I'll tell you exactly how the first record was made. We got together in a room and we jammed, and we threw musical ideas around. And out of the sessions, we ended up with maybe 6 or 7 what I would call templates. Verse, chorus, middle section, solo section, and they were instrumental. From there, I took them and gave them melodies and gave them lyrics.
Right.
Mike Portnoy took one of them as well and did the same. And then the rest of the record was really made up with material that I had already written that I brought to the band. Songs like I'm No Angel, Regret, Damaged, Elevate were all pieces that existed prior to my knowledge of the Winery Dogs forming. And we took those and added those to the collection, and that's how we made that record. This time, I don't have very much back material, so to speak. So we're writing everything from scratch. We already did our sit down where we throw our ideas around. So now I've got 15 or 16 skeletons of the instrumental music that I'm going to develop, write lyrics to, write melodies to. And then once I get them to a point where I'm comfortable with them, I send them off to Billy and Mike, and I listen to their input and thoughts. And as it was last time, oftentimes they love what I did, and sometimes they question some things, and we go back and revisit them. So that's been the process, and that seems to be how this record is going to be written as well.
Is it more difficult for you to write the follow-up, or are you sitting there sort of guessing, wow, this is what the fans like, let me give them more of this, or is there really no rules with the Winery Dogs? It'll be what it'll be?
Well, I mean, there's certain things that I can do on a solo record that I would not attempt to do with the Winery Dogs, because I understand the foundation of what this band is.
Right.
So having said that, I definitely do not consciously think of that. It just kind of happens by nature of, the way we play together in these writing sessions and these jam sessions. So the thing that's tricky for me is, as someone that's been a songwriter writing, if I co-write, I'm in a room with someone else and we're there with pen and paper and we're crafting the song. In this situation, we're kind of crafting instrumental skeletons, and then I have to write the song to that. So it's a little different of an approach, but I think that approach is what makes the Winery Dogs sound so unique. So you have, chord changes or progressions that I normally wouldn't go to or wouldn't do. Suddenly I'm writing melodies to that, and in the end, that's kind of carving out the sound of the Winery Dogs. So by nature of it, it automatically separates stylistically what I do as a solo artist versus what I do with the Winery Dogs. I mean, granted, there's an overlap there.
Right.
You've got songs, Regret is a typical Richie Kotzen style song, much like my song Remember, for example,
right,
or a couple others I could name. But that's on the Winery Dogs record, and it works. So there's definitely overlap. But in the end, just by nature of the way we play together, it just sounds different.
What is the timeline on this? Is this something you're hoping to have out by May, or September, or are we looking at 2016?
I think our plan is to have a record delivered by mid-July.
Okay.
And I think that's completely possible. And then we would start our tour sometime in October.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Now, in the meantime, do you go out solo and do some shows, or are you sort of just laying easy until?
Well, that's what I've done. When the Winery Dogs ended, I immediately went out on a 3-month tour, and I did
South America,
an extensive tour in South America. I
Right.
did the United States for a month. I did Europe for a month, and the last shows we did were in Japan. So I did about 3 months, and I ended the last shows I did were in Japan this February. Actually, I was there on my birthday on February 3rd. I had a show, but that was the end of that. And now, I on purpose, I need to take a break because I feel like I've been kind of traveling a lot, and so I want to spend some time at home and carve out these songs and get ready to do this Winery Dog run.
If I can, I'll ask you an unfair question, but if you had to choose between going forward a successful solo career or a successful career with the Winery Dogs, which would you choose?
That's a tough question, and in answering that, it's almost like I'm kind of cannibalizing myself, so to speak.
Right.
I mean,
it's an unfair question. I admit.
I'll say this. Whatever I do,
Right.
I do 100%, and I
Okay.
put my heart and soul into it, and I want it to be artistically successful. I mean, the external success is something I can't gauge, and oftentimes, like I've been in the music business long enough to know that if I really wanted that external success, I had many, many options many years ago to do what I would have needed to do to accomplish that. And I resisted it every time I was in that position. I've had multiple major record label deals, and every time I've been in that position, it was someone trying to make me do something artistically that I didn't want to do.
Right.
Had I done it, I would have played that game, and I would have kind of had a chance of having that commercial success. And it's something that I always went for what it is that I want to do creatively. And in the end, I think it worked well for me because I've made my whole life, I've made existing on my creativity and music that I wrote, which has always been my goal and objective. But, you know, I mean, to pick and choose, it's definitely a loaded question.
Yes.
But I mean, obviously, the Winery Dogs has been in existence for a year and a half. I've been in existence putting records out since 1989, so it's kind of an obvious question. You know what I mean? It's
right.
Like, but in the end, I mean, I love the Winery Dogs, and I want this record to be something that the three of us can look at and say, wow, I feel we outdid ourselves. I love this even more than the last record. And that's my objective right now. I mean, I'm fully focused on making a great record with Billy and Mike and getting out there and supporting it.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that too. And I'll finish with this today. You've been a successful guitarist, and we mentioned some of the bands you've played in. Over the years, has your phone not rung by all kinds of different bands? And I'm just throwing out random names, Scorpions, Kiss, whatever, and said, hey, come and join us. Did you get a lot of those calls? And if so,
I don't get any, actually, believe it or not.
Really?
I don't get any. It's very strange. And, I don't think...
But you're such a great guitarist.
I think there's a reason why I don't get those calls. I mean, I probably have said and demonstrated enough things where people figure that I'm not really someone that's interested in joining a band, okay. And I'm really not. I mean, there's a handful of bands that I could picture myself playing with where I think I could fit, because I like what they do.
Right.
But my fantasy as a kid, when I was a young kid playing the guitar, was never to be in a famous rock band. I wanted to be Bruce Springsteen or Prince or David Bowie. I mean,
right.
Those were the people that I looked at. So obviously they were all solo artists. I was never someone that looked at the Scorpions as much as I love the Scorpions, or looked at Iron Maiden as much as I love Iron Maiden and thought, I want to be the guitar player in that band. Right. I didn't think that wasn't my thing. I was, like I said, I guess from the beginning, I wanted to be,
exactly
a solo artist.
Exactly who you are.
Yeah, I guess I kind of did. I did it, to a certain level. So, yeah, I guess that answers the question.
Yeah, and honestly, I have to give you kudos, because to be a professional musician and have a career, you can be a professional musician for a year. Anybody can do that. But to be in it for 20, 25, 30 years really takes a special kind of person. And so, it's incredible what you've managed to do.
Well, it's definitely, it's like a roller coaster ride for sure. I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs, and, a lot of patience, and, it's not easy, but if you've been in it long enough, it starts to make sense somehow. You start to figure out how it works, and you can stay above water.
Yeah. Well, Richie, always a pleasure. Thank you again, and continued success. And I'm very much looking forward to Winery Dogs. I'll just call it number 2 for now, but I'm looking forward to it.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, man.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye now. And there you have it, folks. My interview with Richie Kotzen of Winery Dogs, and of course his solo album Cannibals is out now. Mark, let's turn to something a little darker now, because
yes,
we need a little more darkness. I've done a lot of melodic rock interviews these days, so let's go back to the very depths of black metal and Venom, who have a new album called From the Very Depth. And I got to speak to Kronos. Have you ever had a chance to meet or interview Kronos?
I have not. No, I can't wait to hear this. Venom, just such a revolutionary band,
yep.
And the whole crazy Norwegian and Scandinavian black metal scene that happened in the 90s and continues to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Really one of the forefathers of that whole movement is, of course, Venom, along with bands like Bathory and
Yeah.
Hellhammer and even Merciful Fate to some extent. But I mean, Venom, they really just coined that whole
Genre,
movement,
yeah.
yeah, with that early album of theirs, black metal, and just I remember as a kid just how crazy it was, for a guy who listened to everything from Iron Maiden to Rat. For me, hearing Venom as a kid was just like, whoa, now that's some crazy stuff, and they pulled heavily from the punk and hardcore world and also the metal world, and just really their sound back in those days, there was nothing else like it. I
Oh,
mean,
it was
they
scary.
yeah, and it was revolutionary too.
I would watch Much Music, and you would see Def Leppard fooling on the TV, and then you'd see whatever Metallica video, and then Venom would come on, and you'd go, "Oh Jesus, what is that?"
Yeah.
Because the song titles, the way the band looked, and it was creepy, and. So I got to speak here to Kronos, and the interview was fantastic. We talk about the new album called From the Very Depth, and we go over the history of the band and how the sound came about and all that stuff. And it was all very happy and pleasant. And then I mentioned Henry Rollins of course, Black Flag, and suddenly the interview got venomous.
Yeah. There you
uh,
go.
he's not a very big fan of Henry Rollins because Henry Rollins at one point called Venom Spinal Tap.
Hmm.
He said they were the Spinal Tap of metal, and Kronos didn't take kindly to that criticism, nor should he, by the way.
Right.
So that was interesting. Now, Kronos isn't mad at me for asking him the question, but he certainly lets Henry Rollins taste his displeasure. So sit back and wait for that part of the interview, folks, because that's where it gets really entertaining. So I guess we should just get right into it then, huh?
Yes,
So
absolutely. I'm gonna
here's
check this out.
Kronos talking about From the Very Depth and, of course, Henry Rollins. Good day, Kronos. How are you?
Hey, Rich, good, yourself?
I'm very good. Uh, very much looking forward to speaking about the album.
All good, my friend?
Good. So let's get started then. From the Very Depth is your 14th album. Um, Tell me, how did it come together?
Well, realistically, we started to write the album pretty much when we finished the last one, Fallen Angels.
In 2011.
I have my own studio now, and, we rehearse all the time. And, we're in there a few days a week, sort of, just playing because we enjoy playing. And, I don't want to be like working the way we did in the past, where you would release an album and then everybody would be dead happy about the album and getting on with it, and then a year would go by, and then another year would go by, and then the label would say, "Hey, have you guys got a new album?" And you'd be like, "Oh shit, yeah, we better start writing an album." And then everybody's running and panicking and, "Oh shit, we've got to do this." And so to me, as a musician, I'm just always writing songs, always writing lyrics and music, and and I think that's how it should be, So then, when it comes time, I mean, for example, when we got to the stage at the end of 2013, and we said, we're going to actually record the new album in 2014.
Right.
We had maybe 25, 26 songs, which is fantastic. Then we can play through the songs and get the best ones. Come up with all the greatest ideas, because as I've said for many, many years now, there is no album fillers on a Venom album. They all have to be great killer songs. So yeah, it was good as well to also have the whole band contributing to the album. It's not just me writing everything. We've got 3 people who write the albums now, which is fucking fantastic.
Takes a little pressure off you. Just tell me, and I use the word brand, with a brand name like Venom, you could certainly go out around the UK, Sweden, North America, hold shows, fill out the venues. Why the need to make an album?
Oh, you make albums because you want to. I mean, there's no pressure to make an album. I mean, I can't help but write. I can't help but come up with new ideas. I've got thousands of lyrics that I've still never used. I've got thousands of guitar riffs, drum ideas, bass lines that I've still never used. I actually create more music than I have the ability to release. And that's a bit like saying, I've got an asshole and I shit. It's just what you do. I've got a mouth, I'm going to feed it. I've got legs, I'm going to walk. As a musician, you should just naturally create.
Is all the music you're creating meant for Venom, or is there a chance that some of this... Okay, so will it come out as...
I have people who say to me, how do you write a Venom song? And I say, I don't write Venom songs. I just write songs, and if they become venomous, if we play them in the rehearsals and, put some words to them and, hey, this is a fucking great new track, hell yeah, a new Venom song's born. But as can happen, we play through the song and we look at each other and we say, this fucking sucks. I don't write Venom songs as per se. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I mean, the closest I ever came to that, I would say, was back in the day when we had recorded the song Warhead.
Right.
And we got Radio 1 airplay in the UK, and, it sort of, it got in the charts and all this shit. And I remember the label saying, we need another Warhead. And I thought, how do you even do that? How do you create another one of the same song? I says, that's like formatting. I says, that's not what we do. So the record company said, let us hear all of your new songs. We went in the studio, put the songs down, and that's when they heard the song Manitou, and they said, yeah, that's close to Warhead. And I said, what?
Yeah, exactly.
It's nothing like Warhead, But to the record company, it started off with drums. It had a kind of tribal drum pattern. So therefore it was like Warhead. And I don't know what the thinking was, but there you go.
With all these songs that you have, is there any thought of maybe resurrecting Kronos, your solo outfit, and putting out music under both names?
I mean, I say never say never, I mean, it's music's, it never dies. But it's also a matter of time. I'm really busy with Venom, and at the end of the kind of Kronos period, I had got together with the drummer from the band Cathedral, a guy called Mark Wharton.
Right.
And we went and wrote some songs, recorded an album, and the album title was Triumvirate. So you had Dancing in the Fire come out, then you had Rock and Roll Disease come out, then we put the compilation album Venom out, and we went and recorded the album Triumvirate. But when we came to mixing the album, we noticed that there was a problem with all the guitar tracks because the compressor units, etc., in the studio were broken.
Right.
So all the guitars that had been recorded had a really nasty crackle, like a distortion, like it sounded broken. So we couldn't mix the album because of this fault, and we needed to find time to replace all of the guitars on the whole album before we could release the album. That's at the point in 1995 when I then resurrected Venom,
right,
and we started working on that. And all of these years later, 20 years later, I still haven't found the time to replace the guitars and release that album. So it's still just sitting there on master tape.
You think?
Maybe one day.
Yeah. Do you want to get to it and get it released?
Oh yeah, it will happen, but just when is the kind of, the unanswered question.
Death metal, extreme metal, black metal, all that. Part of the trademark is the fast playing, the blast beats, the up pick and down pick and everything. As you get older, does the physicality of playing the music become difficult?
No, it's easier.
Okay.
It's a skill.
Okay.
I remember the very early days, walking on stage and having to really concentrate hard, with riffs like Witch Hour and Bloodlust, and those riffs are just so fucking easy now because, and plus we can play them 10 times the speed. It's a skill like anything else, and it's not the kind of skill that takes massive amounts of endurance, like say running or jumping, like if you're an athlete.
Right.
Because it's more just to do with your fingers and your riffs and your wrists. You get better and better at that skill. I'm sure that regarding your question, when I'm maybe 80 and I've got rheumatism and all of this, then yes, those riffs will become difficult because you can't stop getting old and your bones will let you down.
Right. Because
they physically won't work at that sort of intensity and that speed. But, I'm only in my early 50s. I think I've got another good 20 plus years to go.
Okay. Oh, so that's good to hear. So then Venom then is something that you plan on doing then for the next 20 years. There's no farewell tour coming up next year or anything.
No, I'm going to do this till I drop dead.
Good.
This is what I love doing. People talk to me about success, and to me, success is being able to do what you want with your life when you want to do it. And this is what I've always wanted to do. I grew my hair long when I was in the high school. I've never cut it because I'm a musician. I play music. I'm in a band. I can gig when I want, tour when I want, make albums when I want. To me, I've got one of the greatest jobs I could have. I really feel like I have a real, I'm humbled by the fans who appreciate this music and who follow this music. And I have such an appreciation for, those guys who, support this because, I feel that I have the greatest success I could have being in Venom.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. For, a couple of years early in the 2000s, you were unable to perform. You had the climbing accident. How has that affected you? Has it changed the way you approach the music? Has it changed? Has it changed your psychology at all? How did that accident affect you?
Well, it was a period of time that was to me just, if anything, just frustrating because I couldn't play, I couldn't go to the gym, I couldn't do fuck all. So, it was a frustrating time. But I'm one of these people that one door closes, two doors open. If when bad things happen in my life, I always think something good must have come out of it. You've always got to look at life like that. Or it would just get you down. And that's when I turned to the computer because it was the only thing I could do was basically type on a keyboard and twiddle a mouse. So, I bought a computer and started to learn how to program and, operate software, et cetera, et cetera. So out of that, time where I couldn't create the music, I say I couldn't create the music. I actually wrote quite a few songs that appeared on the likes of the Resurrection and Cast in Stone albums. I wrote those on the computer. So yeah, I was still able to create some music even though I couldn't physically pick the guitar up.
Yeah. That's going back in history. Venom started around 79, 80. the music scene at that time was, you had some Aerosmith and some Cheap Trick, and you had KC and the Sunshine Band, but you didn't have this kind of extreme metal. How did you envision that? How did you lead into what made you want to go faster, heavier, darker, lyrically? How did Venom come about?
It was the thing. I grew up listening to rock music,
Right.
Zeppelin, even The Who and the Stones and
Black
Free and
Sabbath.
Bad Company and Deep Purple. And once punk came out and actually kicked rock music in the butt,
Right.
it kind of took no prisoners and, left nothing in its wake. When punk died, which was pretty soon after it was born, rock music kind of didn't know where it was going. I know a lot of people who used to say to me, what music do you like? Rock music. But, oh, fuck, that's dead. I'm talking, 76, 77. Rock music's dead. Rock music's dead. And to me, all that had happened was rock music had turned lame. And it was because you had all these punk bands who came out and they were so extreme and aggressive, fuck this and fuck that and fucking, and rock music was always considered the music for the bad boys, it was, the rock musicians were the guys who were going to be driving down the freeway on their motorbike, swigging whiskey with a chick on the back. And now all of a sudden, rock music was lame, and it was like, oh no, my girlfriend's left me, and, and there was songs about being on the road and being bored and lonely, and I don't know, rock music just needed a kick up the ass, it needed some fucking snot and some piss and some aggression and some fucking punk. And the bands, as you're saying, the KC and the Sunshine bands, and fucking, that's not rock music, that's
No.
fucking pop rock.
But it was the 70s, right? There was a lot of it.
Yeah. Basically, I looked like a rock musician, but I felt like a punk rocker. So I created a music that was kind of a marriage of the two.
Right.
It was rock riffs, rock drumming, and punk lyrics. And then when you start singing punk lyrics and incorporating a bit of Black Sabbath in there with a bit of Judas Priest, and it just starts getting darker and nastier, and, the drum beats get faster and the riffs get more aggressive. And, look, I wouldn't sit here and say, I was a mastermind. I sat here, I had the big vision, the lights came on, the fucking clouds parted, and I thought, I know, I'll create black metal. It didn't work like that. It was probably 50% a fucking happy accident.
Right.
We got together as a band, friends, playing music. We enjoyed. We didn't take each other too seriously. We didn't take the band too seriously. We were having a blast. We didn't used to book the clubs like a lot of the bands. We used to book church halls and, say to the local priest, look, we'll give you £10 if we can use your venue on Saturday evening. And the priest will snap your fucking hand off for that because, they just want some money, don't they? So, And then we would go in there and set up some pyrotechnics, some green smoke, some red smoke, some blue, and we would just create these concerts of just mayhem. We didn't have a mixing desk and all this, so it would have sounded like shit, but we were having a great time, and there was smoke pissing out of the fucking church windows. The fire brigade turns up, the police, kids are drunk, they're getting arrested. Fucking mayhem.
Right.
Absolute mayhem. And a good time was had by all.
It really was. Yeah, after you came out, a lot of bands started citing you as an influence, from Slayer to Metallica to Anthrax to all those bands. How would you categorize your influence on the scene? What is Venom's legacy?
Well, I just hope that we had, as a catalyst, I just hope that we had a part to play in stopping this music actually dying. and continuing the legacy of rock, rock and roll, you know, the thing that Elvis Presley and Bill Haley and all those guys started back in the day, you know. I just hope that when these people were telling me in the 70s, rock's dead, rock's dead, rock's dead, and as we now know, it isn't, and it won't be for a very long time. There's thousands of festivals out there, millions of bands out there, all playing a form of rock and roll, which we can term however we want, black metal, death metal, sweet metal, power metal, fucking hell. We all play in rock and roll, and, you know, if I had a small part to play in the longevity of this and stopping it from dying, well, then I'm a fucking happy man.
But you have a song on the album called The Death of Rock and Roll.
It's if you listen to the lyrics or you read the lyrics, it's telling you it's a progression, right? Rock and roll in its form that it was when Elvis Presley was singing Jailhouse Rock is long dead, but it's progressed. You know, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for those guys. Right. You know, and it tells you in the lyrics, you know, we met the devil at the gates, not at the crossroads or by humiliate. So, you know, we're still selling my soul to the devil for the music, you know. It says, you know, so, you know, let the blues man sell his soul. We'll go and party with the demons down below. You know, like, we're up for it. We're not going to stand at the crossroads and wait for the devil to come to save my soul. We're going to knock on hell's door. Here we are, we've come to party. You know, it's a progression. We've progressed rock and roll. And that's what the lyrics of the song say. I love doing that with my songs. You know, I love putting both lyrics and titles where people can misread it. Right. I did it way back in the day with the likes of At War with Satan. Fuck me, that created such a fucking argument with people. So, are you at war with Satan or are you at war with Satan?
Yeah. You know, speaking of misreading and misunderstanding, Black Flag's Henry Rollins famously said once after seeing a Venom show that it was like seeing Spinal Tap. What didn't he understand?
Let me tell you the truth about that concert. Right. Henry Rollins only got the show, that one show on the whole of the Venom tour, because his mum phoned us up and told us that they were the next big thing in New York and that, you know, they had such a huge following, blah, 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 blah. Little did we know that they were a fucking sad little band that had no following. When we got there, they were just like fucking children, you know. They couldn't play. They had no fucking instruments. We had to lend those guys back line. You know, they arrived at the show with a fucking little care package with our sandwiches in and a bottle of orange juice. You know, and it's like, well, I thought you guys were in a band. I thought you were musicians, you know. And they just cried about everything, you know. We couldn't stop laughing at them. It was like, you guys are finished. We were like, where's this following you're supposed to have? But, you know, for those guys to arrive at the show with the mum, you know, and the mum's like sort of like telling everybody what to do, you know, and then she sort of gets into an argument with our manager, and our manager just told her to fuck right off. She was like, we were promised a dressing room, and it's like, yeah, there's the room in there. There's like 3 chairs in it. We don't own the venue. We just turn up. We're not interested in the backstage. We're interested in the stage. We're here to play a concert. Behind the stage, there are some rooms. There's a toilet in one of them, and a chair and a table. That's your backstage. She was expecting like curtains and 3-piece suites and a television, maybe a PlayStation, and, you know, lots of people hanging around to lick their ass. And it's like, well, this is the reality of rock and roll, you know, it's the backstage, just fucking, she cried her fucking eyes out. But those guys were such fucking children. And for all of this about how he stood and watched the Venom show and, you know, couldn't stop laughing with his friends, soon as they had finished playing, they got in their vehicles and left. So I don't know what show he watched, but it certainly wasn't the Venom show. And also, if you read the book, he got the date wrong of the gig. This is why Henry Rollins writes books and is no longer in a band, because he's not a fucking musician. He's a fool.
I could certainly now speaking, and I'll finish with this. I was told we had 20 minutes and we've gone a little bit over, but 2004, Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters and, of course, Nirvana called you in to play on his Probot project. Great album, by the way. Absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
You did Centuries of Sin. Just tell me a little bit about that experience. I mean, here's the guy who was in a band that sort of changed the world in the 90s. The Foo Fighters in 2015, arguably one of the biggest bands out there. And here's Kronos with Dave doing Centuries of Sin. Just a little story about that.
I was expecting another fucking Henry Rollins, to tell you the truth. But Dave got in touch, says, I've got an idea for an album. I've got some songs, blah, blah, blah. And I thought 90% this is not going to happen. But I'm curious. I says, 10%, I'll give you the 10%. Let's hear it. And Dave was so fucking genuine. He was so down to earth. I was absolutely gobsmacked on how cool the guy was and professional. And he sent me all the songs, told me which song he had in mind for me, asked me if I would like to get involved, would I want to write some lyrics. So what I did is I wrote 3 different types of lyrics for the one song. So basically, I took his music, I recorded a verse and a chorus for 3 different types of songs. One was called Fighting Talk. So it was all, we're the boys out on the town getting drunk, having a fight. Then I wrote another song which was about the red light district, going out, scoring with a hookah, a bit sleazy. And then I wrote a venomous type of one, which was Centuries of Sin, evils, demons, monsters, and thinking he would choose one of the first 2. And he was like, no, I want it to be Venom, get the fucking evil in there, Centuries of Sin, So he sent the master tapes over, recorded it, went, met the guy, hung out with him all day, all night. We went out for drinks. Fucking, Dave's since been a good friend of mine. I've been to see him at concerts, vice versa. He goes on stage with Venom t-shirts on.
He's the real deal.
Dave's the real deal. He's the fucking real deal. Even when he started growing his hair, I said, fuck, what about the Foo Fighters? He said, fuck the Foo Fighters. He says, my wife loves it. She must like a bit of rough.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, this has been...
So, yeah. I mean, Dave's a really good friend of mine. I can't say anything bad about him. And I was blown away by the Probot project, to tell you the truth. I thought it was awesome. The Motorhead song was fucking cool. Max Cavalera did an amazing job. King Diamond, fucking, I could go on. I love that album. It's fucking great. If Dave ever wants to make Probot 2, give me a call. I'll be first in line.
Oh, there definitely needs to be a Probot 2. Kronos, absolute pleasure. It's been a great chat, and hopefully we'll see you in Montreal soon. Pardon me?
Thank you very much. You take care, my friend.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Cheers. Bye.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with Cronos of Venom. I hope you enjoyed his comments about Henry Rollins. And in fact, if you'll go over to the Facebook page when I post the link to this interview, please write in your comments about what he said or what you think of Henry Rollins yourself. Mark, there you have it. Another fun episode. Anything coming up on Talking Metal that you want to mention?
Yes. Thanks to you, we have Paul Di'Anno coming up, and I hope to post that this week at some point. And Paul has given us clearance to play some brand new music that no one has ever heard. So please tune in to an upcoming episode of Talking Metal to check out a new interview with Paul Di'Anno and also some new music by Architects of Chaos, the band that Paul is currently a member of.
There you go. And just quickly, folks, I've had a chance to hear the new Whitesnake album, the Purple Album. And you know that Joel Hoekstra once in a while co-hosts these episodes with me. And I think the album is really fun. Does it replace the original tracks, the original, Deep Purple of the 70s? No, but I don't think that was the intention. So I certainly hope that when it comes out in May, people will listen to it with open ears and embrace the new versions because they're just fun. I know, Mark, you weren't a big fan of of the Purple album, but you'll see.
Right.
You'll
Well,
see.
a lot of people talking about it. Eddie Trunk is actually talking about it. John Five, I heard talking about it.
Yeah.
A lot of people talking about it, and Joel Hoekstra, I know, is actually going to be on that metal show with Eddie Trunk next week. So it should be interesting if he has anything to say about it too.
Yeah, really, it'll be fun. And folks, remember, check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/one-on-one Mitch Lafon. There was no room for the with. And of course, at Mitch Lafon on Twitter. And Mark, where can we find you?
Let's go to Facebook. My personal Facebook is facebook.com/mstrigl. That's MSTRIGL. Check me out there.
Yeah, I recommend it because every day these days there's pictures of you with Geddy Lee and John Five and I think Joe Elliott as well, right? There's
Yep. Joe, what a great guy. I love Joe. Joe's one of those guys. I'd never met Joe, and I had seen him in concert. I'd slapped his hand from the stage, sitting in the audience, and I really thought that he might kind of have like a rock star standoffish vibe. I don't know why I thought that, but he was one of the nicest rock stars I've ever met. So friendly and personable, and just beyond nice. So what a great guy Joe Elliott is.
Well, I'll say this about Joe, because I've met the band a couple of times. Most of these bands that last forever and ever usually are made up of nice people, because the ones that are real, what's the word I want to use? Well, dicks. Usually they end up playing the club scene to 12 people. Your Kisses, your Alice Coopers, your Def Leppards, those guys usually stay on top because they just know how to be nice to everybody. So
Yeah, and they respect their fans. I think that's part of it too.
they respect the fans, they respect the business associates, they respect the promoters, and that's what keeps you in the game at that high level. The other ones that are sort of shitty and prima donna-ish are playing bowling alleys for 14 people. And
Good point.
it's just the way it is. Thank you, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. We will be back soon with another episode. I've got a bunch of stuff coming up. Lawrence Gowan of Styx, Jack Blades of Night Ranger, Jeff Scott Soto, Dead City Ruins, George Thorogood for a second interview. Boy, just a bunch of stuff. And I've probably forgotten a couple, but just a bunch of stuff coming up. So keep listening, and there you go. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Mark.
See ya.